to be reviewing the Vortex 250 Pro. So to start things off with what comes in the box, of course, you get the Vortex Pro, you get the GoPro mount, which is not installed, you get two sets of Gem Fan 50-45 bullnose propellers, so that's 8 propellers in total, not installed either. You get receiver cable, so you get a receiver cable for a Spectrum, a PPM, and an S-Bus. So you can use pretty much any receiver. You get 2 stickers, and you get the Immersion RC antenna. And if you get a quadcopter that comes with a zipper case, you will get a zipper case. The quadcopter is 250 millimeters motor to motor. It can support 5-inch propellers with the GoPro on. But if you take the GoPro off, it can actually support 6-inch propellers. If you want 6-inch propellers and you still want to have a GoPro, you can buy bigger arms. But then your quadcopter will no longer be 250 millimeters; it will be 270. So the arms are 4 millimeter carbon fiber. They appear to be very high quality. They have very nice motor protection extensions, so when you crash it hits the carbon fiber, not your expensive motors. They have a very nice cutout for the ESC ventilation, so they can be cooled down. It has a 2 millimeter main plate, as you can see. It's not quite thick enough, more on that later. Moving on to the motors, we have a 2204 2300 kV motor. Believe it or not, these are actually multi-star elites, if you're familiar with those. That's a motor manufactured by Hobby King, and they're the V-Spec version, which means that they have tighter quality checking and that they're supposed to be slightly better. But multi-star elites are not known for being a very good motor. They have some problems, and I am not a huge fan of them. I am comparing them to the Cobra 2204 2300 kV motor, which are supposed to be very good. I've already broke one, and I'm about to break the second one. It's really feeling not very good. I broke the shaft on the first one, and the second one, I believe I've broken my bearing. So these motors aren't the toughest, and also they don't perform too great. To be honest, I don't feel like they have enough, as much power compared to the Cobras. And so they recommend that you run Gem Fan 50-45 bullnose props, 2-bladed ones. But I immediately switched them out to the DAL 50-45 bullnose props because they're just so much better of a prop. They don't break as often. They look more, I like them much more. And so I flew with those for a while, but the quadcopter just didn't have enough power. So I eventually switched out to these tri-blade bullnoses, and they're okay. And when I first tried them, I did some line of sight, and I was pumping my throttle quite a bit, doing some flips and all, and they got way too hot. They started smelling, and they got way too hot, untouchably hot. So keep in mind, if you do decide to run these tri-blade bullnoses, to be really careful. You don't want to be pumping your throttle or running it at full power for too long. But with that said, I would recommend trying the tri-blade bullnoses because it just gives you so much more power and so much more authority. I'm running Oh My God's tune with the HQ 5x4x3 props, and that works perfectly with these bullnoses. So moving on to the video, we have a 350 milliwatt Next Wave 5.8 gigahertz transmitter. So what they mean by Next Wave is you have 40 channels of support, which is like way more than you ever need. Horizon Hobby says, and this is a quote, "It's compatible with any 5.8 gigahertz AV headset on the market." So that means you're all good with the transmitter. You'd be saying, oh, it's only 350 milliwatts. But I'm very, very surprised that it's only 350 milliwatts because it actually performs better than on my Immersion RC 600 milliwatt. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's specifically tuned for the quadcopter, maybe the power filtering is superb, but this video is just incredible. The only problem is this camera. This 700 TV line V2 is junk. It's almost completely useless. It is way overexposed, no matter what mode, so you barely have any color. It's all just white. It has terrible dynamic range. It has a slow response. So if you're in somewhere dark and you go into somewhere light, it takes forever. There's a ton of lag in that sense, and it's just not a good camera. I've tried replacing it with another camera, and unfortunately they don't fit because this one's really, really small. So I called up Horizon and I complained, oh, my camera's terrible and all. And they're like, oh yeah, the same thing happens with my Vortex Pro because the guy there had the Vortex Pro. So they are aware that this camera is awful, and they're continuing to send it out. So the transmitter has an excellent switching mode thing. So you can have it in auto mode, which means when your motors are off, it's broadcasting at a very low power. Then when the motors are on, it broadcasts at medium power, and when it starts to get staticky, it'll broadcast at very high power, which is great because you won't cause any unnecessary interference and you'll save power. And so that's auto mode. You can also switch it to high power, which is high all the time, which is the 350 milliwatts, and then low power, which is under 350 milliwatts. I cannot find how much it is, but I know it's under 250. So somewhere in there. And I don't really notice much of a difference, and it's just great all the way around. So you can change the power, which is great for racers, because some races say, oh, only 250 milliwatts, oh, only 350, and you can just have it perfect. So the OSD on this quadcopter is superb. You have pretty much everything you need to know short of GPS things, because this thing does not have a GPS. You can see the milliamp hours used, which is excellent. So if you have a 1,300 milliamp pack, you'd be, don't want to use all 1,300 milliwatts, so you can land when you need it. Also, it will give you very clear displays in the center of the OSD when it's time to land. So it'll say, oh, your battery's at a low voltage, or oh, you only have 250 milliamps left in your battery. So the OSD gets full marks. You can do almost everything through the OSD as well. You can do PID tuning, you can change the LED, you can do, you can get Pro Tunes, you can also configure the OSD, so you could have it, instead of being like, on the edges, you could have it more in the center if your goggles aren't very good, or you can do almost anything. There's also game mode, which actually gives you a score for flying. So if you fly really low and really fast, it'll give you a higher score. I haven't used it much, but it sounds like fun. So the receiver that comes with this quadcopter in the Blade version is very high quality. It's the Spectrum DSMX FPV Racing Serial Receiver. It takes 3.3 volts in, and it's superb. It is Spectrum, and it is the size of a regular satellite and the weight of a regular satellite, but it has full range, which is just incredible. It also has 11 milliseconds of latency instead of 22, so you can have crazy fast responses. This receiver is incredible. The only problem is that you can't buy it unless you get the Vortex Pro. It will hopefully be coming out soon, but you can only get it with the Vortex Pro, unfortunately. Another not so great thing about the placement of this receiver is, as you can see, the antennas are very bound to hitting the propellers. They're just put here by default, and I've already chopped half of one antenna off, which is sort of sad. Moving on to the flight controller, it's a Fusion F3 with clean flight, so I have no complaints. It is much better than any maze I've ever flown, and oh my god, its tune is just superb. I've plugged it into clean flight. It seems very easy to use. It's just a regular old clean flight. It's very fast, and it's all beautifully integrated with the OSD and beautifully integrated with everything. And I think that's a very large selling point for this quadcopter. Everything works together, and it's just a great piece of machinery, except for the camera. So this quadcopter does have a very nice LED. It's an LED. What else do you expect? It's extremely bright, and it's full RGB. So yeah. It's really nice. I like it on blue because not everyone uses blue, and yeah. So all in all, I love this quadcopter. It may not have the power of some of the build-it-yourself quadcopters, and the motors might not be too great, and the camera has some problems, but it compensates for it. It is so well tuned, and it works so well. I have flown this, like I said, over 50 packs, and I haven't broken much except for like a motor. And I like it. It definitely gets a good score.